Understanding a phase of confusion and uncertainty on the spiritual path. I have been on the path in serious way for about 4 years now. The path started out for me as a need for relief from emotional suffering and somehow intensified into seeking reality. I spent some time physically with a few teachers from the same lineage. A lot of what bothered me prior to the search, like insecurities, jealousies, and so on, fell away through this phase. Through this phase, it also became very clear to me as to what I am. But somehow, it didn't completely address my longing. Somewhere, I'm longing for more. I don't know what it is exactly, but I feel like saying it's fulfilling in action my spiritual and material calling. Basically, an overall fulfillment of why I'm here. This phase has been on for about a year now, and out of many blockages, one of them is I have difficulties generating the necessary energy to make breakthroughs. At the same time, the lack of life experience and sometimes immaturity and a lot of other things hamper fulfilling this calling. Everyone around me seems to have an explanation. Parents, friends, etc. And they are all right to some extent. At the same time, while I'm seeking answers, I have tried to understand all of this from perspectives such as astrology, diet and nutrition, spirituality, and so on. As a spiritual practitioner, I feel connected to God, and every day I converse with Him in some way, and I somewhere intuitively feel assured that it all work out one way or another. But the confusion of uncertainty, lack of clarity, and wisdom makes this phase difficult. I am open to receiving any practice that can help me flow on the path continually and break through whatever obstacles each phase of the path entails. Question. I don't know what the question is really, and if you can help, but your broad view of spirituality interests me, and I feel your perspective and association might help shed some light on this phase. With much love and gratitude. Well, it's not uncommon, and it's very natural what you're going through, and I think all of us go through this at some point. You call it a phase, but I call it just essentially where the quest really brings you, where it culminates. Culminates not to come to a halt. What comes to a halt is that seeking. But that only is the portal where the true work begins. Because forgive me, with all that what you wrote is just essentially is the beginning, is the birth of the seeker. It's that where we essentially one day, sooner or later, become dissatisfied with the way life is. So let's face it. It's not a big deal, it's a normal, it's natural. We cannot be satisfied by bread alone. We cannot be satisfied just by a good marriage alone. We cannot be satisfied by just having kids. We cannot be satisfied by living alone and having all our lives to ourselves. We cannot be satisfied by being successful. And the list of why we cannot be satisfied goes on and on, no matter what we are doing in life and what occupations and so forth and what endeavors we put ourselves or give ourselves to. It is absolutely natural, essential, existential that at some point, sooner or later, we realize that indeed there is more. There is more. Just as you wrote, there is more to life. There is more to it. Yes, we go and start seeing teachers, reading books, scriptures, motivational, we exposed to motivational speeches, we read autobiographies, spiritual autobiographies, inspiring accounts of these beings, that being. We just essentially enter this, what has to culminate somewhere. What do I mean by culminate somewhere? I want you to be attentive here. Attentive to a simple fact is that spirituality has many different, as it were, perspectives. One of the perspectives of spirituality is just to make our life better. It's a noble, but albeit limited perspective. It's just to make our life better as we are, where our status quo is not challenged, not questioned. It's like a therapy. Something is not working to its full potential and we want to improve it. And this is the field of spirituality because it's the most effective field, the surest. Some people go to shrinks, some people go to psychiatrists and psychologists and start seeking help. I cannot sleep. I go to sleep, my head is full of thoughts, I'm not resting. I cannot sleep because this or that. I need some help. I need either sleeping pills or I need some kind of methodology. I need to read something or hear something that will lull me to sleep. I need to do something which essentially eases the way of my being. And of course, spirituality is the best way, the quickest way, the surest way. Spirituality in here is, if you're practical about it, get introduced to a proper meditation and a lot of the things will be aligned in your life, I would say in no time. A lot of these basic things. But this is just the first level of what spirituality is and how it is used and utilized. The real purpose of spirituality is for actually answering that very pertinent question of why are we here? What are we in the first place? What are we other, or as opposed to what we've been told, taught, formed, molded into? And that's a more noble purpose of spirituality. This is where spirituality is taken further than just the field of psychology, or taking further than just some kind of self-help improvement and so forth. It is more than just therapy. It becomes what very often is called a path. We enter the path, and this or that spiritual tradition that we gravitate to or happen to be exposed, happen to be introduced into, take precedence and become that parallel vein in our life, because we still live the so-called real life where mostly the flow of the river of life is. And then in parallel to that there is also this spiritual life. And at some point the confluence takes place. It has to. It's when the world of our spirituality, whatever that is, whatever practices we do, whatever breakthroughs we have, begins to merge with what we consider our life. And what I mean by that, what I said earlier, it has to culminate, the quest has to culminate in where we essentially give ourselves entirely to the realization of our greater potential. And that is the birth of a seeker. It is the birth of someone who wants to get to the bottom of this, essentially, what this is all about. To crack that nut, to get to the bottom of it, to the core of it. So you admit in your question that you don't even know really what the question is, and you're hoping that you can receive some help. because you resonate with some of the views, you call it broad views of spirituality, and you feel that my perspective might help to shed some light on what you're going through. So this is why I'm replying to you in the way I do, is that you need to make that conscious confluence, a conscious merger between what you consider your life with all its essentially set up and that what you consider to be what you are after. Because the sooner you do that, the less will be there a possibility for these streams to run parallelly and causing you this split, essentially, understanding. Already what you have shared is quite amazing, right? In the first paragraph you said a lot of things have gone, like insecurities, jealousies, fell away from this phase. That's amazing. Some people struggle with it for a long time, and you have no questions. It's very clear to you who you are, but something is still rising there, that there is more, that fulfillment. So, and that confluencing also is when you have to essentially find a way where you can dig one well, where you can actually give yourself to a specific approach, even I would say, a specific path, where you no longer just, your interests are scattered and you take from here, from the field of astrology, from the field of this, from the field of that. It's wonderful, it's very educational, it certainly enriches us. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's very, very admirable thing to do. But if that fulfillment you are after, if the fulfillment you're speaking about here, then you need to give yourself to that, what this is about. Because the fulfillment comes from realization that nothing is lacking in our field of consciousness, because that's what we are. Our nature, the essence of our being, is fullness itself. Exemplified by that Purnamada, it's that fullness. In other words, looking for fulfillment is already a bias. It's already what is, spiritually speaking, called ignorance. Because fulfillment cannot come from somewhere which is the lack, is being filled by addition of one element into another element. It's the realization of our essential nature. So in other words, this is what I mean. The quest has to culminate to the real deal. To the real deal of what you are here for. And as far as we can see this, the only real purpose of why we are in this embodied form is to, after this, what we could call perhaps traditionally, cycle or circle of wandering, returning to the place and know ourselves for the first time, as the poet said. In other words, it's this rediscovery of our essential nature. But that rediscovery is a radical affair. It has nothing to do with additions. It has nothing to do with enriching our life with this aspect of this knowledge, of this understanding. At some point, you are given to the company of truth. The definition is satsang. At some point, you are in the presence of the darshan, which by definition means having the glimpse of your own light, so that you can recognize that you are that light into yourself. But it can only happen. It can only happen if that spark of your own awareness awake within permanently. And for that, you need to dig one well. You need to go and be with one teacher for the time being. Not like I've been with several teachers from the same lineage. That doesn't say anything to me. I don't even know what you mean by that. I've been with several teachers from the same lineage. What does that mean? Get into one boat, push against the shore, and sail through, as they say. You cannot jump from one horse to another. At least you need to first dismount and then mount another one. The analogies are many. Yes, in the modern world, in the reality of our own, there's a tremendous temptation to constantly try. And that's the beauty of our time. And that's the danger of our time. In the vast supermarket of spiritual goodies, everything is offered itself like this. So we can go and pick. If I don't like this shelf, I'll go to another. If I don't like the supermarket, you know what? It's not far away, I can just drive down the road. I'll go to another one. I have my currency, I'll decide where I will spend my money. But deep down, all of us have this also ancient knowledge. Deep down we have this ancient intuition, this echo of the Puranas, this in Indian spirituality. As you know, there's Puranas, Aranyakas, and the Upanishads, the ancient, essentially, body of that timeless wisdom passed from heart to heart. And it is that memory of that wholeness that we have, that smriti, that memory of the wholeness is what keeps driving us. And we will never be satisfied, no matter what we've tried, until we finally come to the source of that knowledge and partake in it. Then all the quest rests there. It's like, okay, now there's no need to go anywhere. I can actually drink here. I can, for the first time, forget about the search. And this is what it means. The quest has terminated in finding. The definition of sadhaka is the one who finds. There are many levels to that. Sadhaka first finds the source where to drink. The term sadhak is the one who finds a good source, who finds a good teacher, a capable one. And then, in turn, it culminates in finding the self, because the self is never lost. It's simply being revealed. But it's very easy to jump into these mental conclusions, intellectual speculations, and in no time we think we figured it out, but we wake up after the best darshan. Oh, it's kind of weighing down, okay. And a week after, where is all this? I know who I was. I know my nature is gone. So that continues until it is essentially so self-evident, then it's like, okay, I've been swimming in this river all this time, and finally I'm wet from realization that I've been wet all along. So these are my just inspiration for your path, inspiration for your journey. And I hope it's not too complicated. I hope I spoke directly enough to you to understand really that confluencing has to begin to take place.